Welcome back to another weekly report. If you guys don't know me, I'm J.Moffit. I post weekly earnings reports as well as my daily drive series where I try to document my Hotshot experience daily, sharing with you the ins and outs, ups and downs, in hopefully an entertaining and helpful way. All right, as usual, I won't keep you waiting. I'll get right into the numbers, and then after that, we'll cover some Q&A. This report is going to cover Thursday, September 5th through Friday, September 13th, so 8 days total. Monday, September 2nd was Labor Day. As you know, holiday weeks are typically slow on the boards. Available freight was low, and what was on there was listed for pretty cheap, so I just held out, and I'm glad I decided to wait because the broker I've worked with in the past up here reached out on Thursday for this first load. Picking up Thursday the 5th, in Brunswick, Maine, about a 40-mile deadhead with a delivery in Winooski, Vermont. It was a full load, about 13,000 pounds of industrial shelving material, 288 loaded miles for $1,300 with a rate per mile of $4.51. I wouldn't have made it to Winooski in time for delivery, so I just went back to the house, which was on the way. So that was nice to spend the night back at the house loaded. I delivered the shelving material in Winooski on Friday morning, and they happened to have this collapsible container that needed to go back to the Brunswick hangar. Not even 20 feet, 2,500 pounds, I'm guessing, 288 miles, of course, for $600 for a rate per mile of $2.08. Again, I wouldn't have made it back to Brunswick in time for a delivery, so I went home that Friday evening loaded for the weekend. Monday morning, I dropped the collapsible container in Brunswick, and they loaded more shelving material on me back to Winooski, Vermont. Basically the same load, paying $1,300 with a rate per mile of $4.51. And you guessed it, by the time I got loaded Monday, I wouldn't have made it back to Winooski in time, so I spent the night at the house again. I dropped the shelving material Tuesday morning. Unfortunately, they didn't have another load for me going back to the Brunswick hangar, but I was blessed to find this next load picking up 5 miles down the road in South Burlington, Vermont. It was going to Oxford, Pennsylvania, steel truck frame rails, 28 feet, 3,200 pounds, tarped, paying $700 with a rate per mile of $1.58. Not good, but it's pretty typical heading from the up north region back down into a better freight area, just the way it is. So I dropped the frame rails Wednesday morning and deadheaded up to Newark, New Jersey, about 150 miles to grab this next load, which was generated from my Facebook Marketplace ad. So do that with what you will. Do what you will with that information. Two 20-foot containers going up to Wareham, Massachusetts, paying $1,000, 245 loaded miles with a rate per mile of $4.08. I crashed for the night in Milford, Connecticut, then dropped the 220s Thursday morning in Wareham, Mass, which was only about 35 miles from this next load, which was generated by cold calling shipping container companies in my region. A 40-foot high cube picking up in Mansfield, as I mentioned, only 35 miles north of Wareham, Mass, going to Hamden, Maine, 271 loaded miles for $800 with a rate per mile of $2.95. I wouldn't make that delivery in time, so again, I got to spend the night at home. Friday morning, I left out pretty early for Hamden, Maine. I was keeping an eye on the load boards on the way up there, looking for a short haul to cap off the week that Friday. So I was blessed to have found this final load coming out of Hancock, Maine, which is about 40-mile deadhead from Hamden, going to Georgetown, Maine. 116 loaded miles of lumber, no tarp, paying $800 with a rate per mile of $6.90. I'm just realizing that I didn't look at my trip miles yet and run the calculations for the total mileage and rate per mile. So I'll just pop it up on the screen here. Hold on a second. So including my 67-mile deadhead back to the house, my total trip miles were, and the grand total for the 8 days was $6,500 with a rate per mile of, and I only spent 2 nights in the truck. So all in all, pretty happy with my first full week of testing out this new local lane strategy. All right, on to some Q&A. RNG864 asks, did your truck throw any codes when deleting the bed? Apparently he has a high trim level package truck, similar to what I have here, and he heard that deleting the bed will cause codes. The only issue I had was I didn't reinstall my tailgate camera or my rear bumper backup sensors. So none of that stuff works on my truck anymore. When I put it in reverse, you might have noticed on some of the daily drive series videos, my screen goes black on the dashboard, things like that. So that's the only issue as I have with that. Of course, it's easily fixed by just putting the camera from the tailgate as well as your sensors in the new custom bed that you install. I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. Coal Roller 9482 out of Virginia says he's been running step decks with his boy, but recently sold the trucks. He has his own authority. It's on hold at the moment, and he's thinking about getting into Hotshot. He already has a pickup truck, and he wants to know what trailer to get. So that's a tough question for me to answer exactly. It just depends on whether you want to haul cars or freight or maybe containers. I will say this, when I first got into Hotshot and I was contemplating getting in the Hotshot, the only thing that was really on my radar was freight versus cars. And what I found in that research was freight was, generally speaking, for the guys who wanted to run OTR. They wanted to make more money, but they were willing to stay out 3, 4, 5, weeks at a time, whatever it took. And then the car hauling guys stayed a little bit more locally, regionally, if you will. They got to stay home more, but they didn't gross as much and they didn't maybe make as much money. Of course, that's just generally speaking. It just all depends on your situation. But now, especially now that I've been trying out this new local lane strategy and seeing that there's a lot of container companies in my region here that are buying containers out of South Mass or Newark, New Jersey area, or even Chicago. I'm sure they're all over the country. So I would just encourage you to call some of these local companies in your area, in your greater region even, in the next state over or whatever, and see if they need anybody to haul some stuff. And that will help you decide what trailer you're gonna get. I guarantee you they're gonna be happy to talk with another guy who's, to have that another connection to haul some stuff, because a lot of trucking companies are going out of business. And anyway, that's just been in my experience. They were happy to hear from me. And when I just asked them, well, what do you normally pay for a load like that? They were happy to tell me. So I would do that, call around some local businesses, because you might, and things like shed manufacturers and modular custom cabins and things like that. You never know. You might end up getting a tilt, or getting into something that you haven't even thought of yet. So just do your research, and because it's tough out here. Even if you've got some experience, it's pretty tough out here. But anyway, that concludes today's weekly. Till next time, be safe out there on the road, guys.